we have the different skills now, we've prepped some of the files, I think it's time to start compiling what will become this birthday card. So let me start out with this reference file. This is just going to be something I keep up and I'm referencing again and again until I get all the elements in place. Just because I'm a photo retoucher, let's recolor this. I can tell it's a little bit yellow. So I'm going to go to the adjustments. I'm going to click on levels. We already previously saw how you can move these like different dark, mid-tone, and light sliders to change the contrast and reset the white and the black points. There's also these droppers on the left side, and these help with like changing the white balance. So like for example, this one's for blacks, this one's for grays, this one's for whites. So if you click the black one and you click on something that's supposed to be black, and you can click around and try different things, it'll change the picture, setting whatever I clicked on in this case as perfect black. So I'm trying to pick the darkest thing in the photo, and it's kind of hard to tell. Anyway, that one looks, it's a little bit better, but if I try the gray one, I can click around in the gray things in the photo. Now it looks a little on the cold side. So this must not be a neutral gray, it must have some coloring to it that makes this want to cool it off, so it's like a warmer gray. Let me try the white one and click around in some various areas and see. Now you can tell if you click in a dark area and you're telling them that's white, it's going to take everything that's brighter than that and blow it out. So it's very blown out. So if you keep clicking around in the blown out areas, eventually you'll get this down to a place where it looks natural again. Again, with the white one, you want to click on something that's supposed to be truly white. And I'm actually happy with that. I think that looks better than what we started with. It looks more true. So let's stick with that. One thing I haven't showed you before is if you hold command and you click and you have two layers selected, you can right click on them and merge the layers if you like. So once I know I'm not going to change anything anymore, I can merge them, and now this is just a single picture. All right, let's start with compiling. I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to start with that background paper. It's a little lighter than the actual paper here. This is just paper I found on Adobe stock. So I'm just going to throw an adjustment on it, a levels adjustment, and use these like sliders and see if I can darken it just a little bit. That's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so we got the dark gray paper. I'm going to go back to the reference one. The next thing I'm going to throw on here is this happy birthday paper. So on top of this, I'm going to have another layer. I'm going to go to File, Open. Let's see. Oh, not File, Open. File, Place Embedded. And I'm going to choose this happy birthday background paper. I'm going to resize it so that the gray paper is in a spot where it looks like it's even. And I have like a little border in the top and bottom. Perfect. So now you can see it's in its own layer. And you can change the name, you just double click on it. So this is the happy birthday. Let's see, so now I want to crop. Let me pick the crop tool. This crops all layers, so I want to bring in the sides so that it looks the right dimensions. It's a little bit easier than using a paper cutter. If you notice like you get close to an object and it snaps magnetically like this, you can just hold down the control button again and it will let you have more control. Hit enter to lock it in, and I think we're good. I'm going to use a levels adjustment and kind of brighten this up a little bit. It doesn't look as bright and poppy as it could. It kind of looks flat and cold. So first I'm going to kind of brighten it up with a levels adjustment. I'm just going to take this bright and reset it. If you go too far, it'll look really blown out. I like to just eyeball it. You can play with this other one too. And you can toggle on and off this adjustment layer if you want to see before and after. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back to the move tool, and yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, so you can already see we got 4 different layers going on. Like I said, you can combine layers, but the thing with that is if you combine them, you can't make further changes. If you change your mind and you want this, you know, gray paper to be a different shade of gray later, you know, you can change all that now because everything's separate. This adjustment layer is still, you know, its own layer, and I can come in and fine-tune things later. But if I was to, you know, merge these together, that I can no longer change them. An alternative to merging things together is to hold Command and select both, and to put them in a folder. So there's a folder option right here. If I click, well, it's not letting me do that because it's locked. This background layer is locked. I'm going to double click on that layer. I'm going to call it background, and when I rename it, now it lets me unlock it. So now I can treat this like any other layer. I'm going to again pick these 2 that belong together. I'm going to click the folder, and now I can, you know, keep these together so that it's a little more organized. Just click enter. Same thing with these. I think the levels adjustment for the happy birthday paper and the happy birthday paper belong together. So I'm going to hold Command, click, and I'm going to add them in their own folder. I'm just going to call that happy birthday paper. Okay, so we got those first 2 pieces. Let's see what's next. Looks like the next thing is going to be adding in the film strip. So I'm going to again go to File, Place Embedded, and here's the film strip that we prepared previously. So you can see it's got these little boxes. It lets you make adjustments. If I click enter, it sets it in place. If I want those boxes back, I need to do what's called free transform, and I think you can get to it through the edit menu. So edit, free transform, or you can just hit Command T. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm on this layer. I'm going to rename it because that's confusing. We're going to call this film strip, and I'm just going to hit Command T, and see that brings up the what we saw initially. It'll let you resize and rotate. If I come just outside of the film strip, you'll watch my arrowhead change, just like that. And that lets me click and rotate it. It's doing it by like fractions of a degree. If you hold down the shift, it's a little more coarse. It lets you get more common angles that you're probably going to use, like 90 degrees. I'm going to be on my move tool, and I'm going to move it. I want to make this bigger, so again, Command T will let me have those back, and then I can resize this. I'm going to fit it to the size of the paper. Looks pretty good, and then I'm just going to hit enter. So there's our film strip. Now, you saw in the last video that we made this, the white parts of the film strip transparent, so I don't have to do anything right now. If you had left them white, you could still, you know, mask them out using a layer mask. So anyway, there's lots of ways to do different things. What's nice though is if you get rid of the white parts in the original file, you can keep this file and use it, you know, in lots of different projects and not have to mask out the white every time. So once you create objects and you're happy with them, or if you buy objects, then it's a little more convenient when you're actually like compiling them. So the more work you do ahead of time, the better it is moving forward. So anyway, so we got the film strip. Next thing I'm going to look at is these stars. Looks like there's 3 of them. The top and bottom ones are small and they're tilted to the right. And then this one in the middle is large and tilted to the left. There's also some different placements. So like this star is behind this camera and this star is in front of this camera. We'll have to keep that in mind later when we put the camera in. So let's go ahead and do stars because that'll be simple. I'm going to go back to the project file. I'm going to add, let's see, let's go File, Place Embedded. Let's pick up our star. I'm going to shrink it just a little bit. I'm going to grab it and move it. I'll just get it in a rough position for now, and then we can always change it later once we put the camera in. I'm going to come just outside of the shape, and then that arrow pops up. Lets me change this. I'm going to put it at, I'm just going to hold shift. Oh, there's 15 degrees. There's 30 degrees. Let's just try 30. That's fine. I'm going to click enter. So now we have star. I'm going to rename this top star. So another thing is you can also duplicate layers. So I already have this star, and this star and the bottom star are pretty much going to be the same tilt and the same size. So if I just make a duplicate of this rather than going again and just File, Place Embedded and having to resize it and hope it's the same size, you can just copy the one that you have. So I can either right click on this and hit duplicate layer, or another option to do this. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this on a Mac. Forgive me, I'm a Windows user. Is it Option? Yes. So if you hold down the Option key, let me delete this so I can show you again. If I'm on this layer for top star and I hold down the Option key and then I click and drag, why is it not letting me now? If I click this and then hold Option, is that why? No. Why is this not working now? I'm going to hold Option and then click. Oh, there it goes. Okay. And then it makes a copy. Again, if you right click, you can just duplicate layer and it's the same thing. So now I'm going to call this bottom star. And I'm on my move tool, so I'm just going to grab it and move it down. Let me make a quick mention about this auto select feature when you're on the move tool. So when you're using the move tool, by default the auto select will be on. It's actually a very convenient feature. So when you have 20, 30, however many different layers, let's say I wanted to move the happy birthday paper, I don't want to go hunting through all these layers to find out where the happy birthday paper is. With auto select, it will decide what layer you need to be in just based on what you click on. So if I click on the happy birthday paper, it will move the happy birthday paper. Just going to hit Command Z to undo that. If I click on the film strip, it will automatically click the layer for the film strip. If you don't have auto select on, the thing that's selected in layers is the only thing that's going to move. Doesn't matter if you click on the birthday paper, you click on the star, it doesn't matter. If I click and drag, because I'm on the film strip layer, only the film strip is in this layer and only the film strip will move. So that's what this auto select feature does. So most of the time you can keep it on. If you're trying to troubleshoot or move something very specific, you can turn it off and it will only affect the layer that you're in. So just a tip. Alright, we got the two stars, the top and bottom. Let's go ahead and do one for the middle. Let's see. So we got top star, bottom star. Again, I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to hold Option. I'm going to come over here and click on this. I'm just going to rename it middle star. Now, I'm going to hit enter. I got my move tool selected. Now I think I copied the bottom star. So I think if I grab there, yeah, there it is. I'm just going to put that here. I'm going to hit Command T to bring back the free transform. Come just outside the shape. There's the rotate. I can start rotating this the other way. If I hold shift, it does those increments we talked about. So there's 30 degrees. And then I can increase the size. I'm just gonna hit enter. So that's reasonable. So I got my stars. Again, if you want to create a folder, you can hold down Command, pick the different stars, put them in a folder, and rename the folder stars. At any time, if you want to see what's in the folder, you can click this little arrow. It'll drop it down and you can see the contents. And they're all indented just a little bit. So these three things are in there and the film strip is not. And then if I click it again, it'll collapse. That way you can keep things nice and neat. You can even make one for the film strip even though it's the only thing there. Shrink this. Film strip. It didn't automatically place it in the folder, so if I click and drag and put it in the folder, then it's in the folder. And this looks a little neat and easier to read. Okay, so we got the stars. Next, let's look at the camera. So here the camera, it looks like it's pretty close to this edge on the white, and it's a little less than halfway over into the film strip. And let's start with that. So I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. I'm going to pick up this camera and I'm going to move it and see if we can kind of get the edge. That actually looks pretty decent for this size. Now, how far from the top was it? Looks like the corner of this is in the middle of that film strip. Oh, forgot to hit enter, so I gotta do it again. Place embedded, camera, something like that. Alright, cool. Let's see. I'm gonna move this to the top. Well, maybe. There we go. I'm gonna rename it camera. Let's see. I think in the last video I used a version where I got rid of the strap, and I don't have that on this one. Let's see if I need to change that now or go back. Let me go ahead and update that. Give me just a second. I think I forgot to save the file that I had edited. I'm going to use the eraser real quick. Oh. If your eraser, if you're using the eraser tool, just FYI, it will color whatever you have in this back swatch. So in this case I had black, so when I erase, it's putting black. So that's obviously not what I wanted, so I'm going to click this black and white thing and reset. Now the back is white, the back swatch. So now when I erase, it will use white. So just FYI. Okay. But you've already seen this, so give me just a second. Let me get this back up to speed. Okay. Okay. I think when you eventually start, getting into the workflow of things, the more hotkeys that you learn and use, the faster you'll be able to do all this stuff. Um, there we go, perfect. I'm gonna hit Command S, just save that. Okay, and then let me redo this camera layer. So I'm gonna go File, Place Embedded. Now I pick the camera. Okay, I got rid of the straps. Put this back up where I think it needs to go. Click Enter. Okay. So in this case, I did not automatically get rid of the background. You could choose to do that in the previous file before you insert it. That's fine. I just chose to mask it instead. So here's what I'm gonna do. I noticed that in this one, the camera has like, it's pretty much cut out, but there's a little bit of a border around the camera. So I'm gonna create that with a mask. So I wanna select all the white around the camera, but I don't want to select all the white in the entire camera photo. I'm going to be using this magic wand tool to make the selection. If I have contiguous turned off, it will select all of the white in this entire layer. So if I click on the background, it'll pick all the white, and that's not usable. So I'm going to hit Command D and deselect. I want contiguous, meaning touching. So if I click on this white, now it will only select the white that's touching other white. It will not cross any black. So that will select everything on the outside. Now to get the border around the camera, I need to expand the selection a little bit. Right now it's selected on the background. I'm going to go to Select, Inverse, and now instead of selecting this white around the picture, now it's selecting the camera and then other stuff. But that other stuff doesn't matter. So we're selected on the camera right now. I want to expand the selection so that there's a little bit of a border. So I'm going to go to Select, Modify, and there's some different options here. We have Expand and Contract, which will, make the selection bigger or smaller by a certain number of pixels. And then there's like other options like feather and border. We'll talk about those later. I'm going to expand the selection, and this will make it like wider. And let's do 20, well, let's do 40 pixels and just see what that looks like. I'm going to click OK, and there you go. So now it expanded 40 pixels beyond the edge of the camera. So now that's perfect. What I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to get rid of this selection on the outside after bit. So right now the camera and a little bit of the border selected. I come down here and I can click on this mask icon, and this will mask that area. But since I changed and expanded the selection, it brought in some extra that I don't want. I'm going to click on this mask, switch to my brush tool. I can do that by hitting the B key. And remember, if you paint white, it shows. If you paint black, it hides. So I'm just going to run around and hide this border. Okay, perfect. I think we're good. I'm going to rename this camera. If I want, I can stick a folder in here and call it camera so that everything just stays nice and organized. And again, you can minimize it when you're not working on it. Okay. Now, let me double check the sizing. It is kind of close. When I looked at the original, there's a little more white happy birthday paper on this side. Let me see if it's the right size. I wasn't accounting for this border. So again, if I'm on this camera layer and I hit Command T, you can transform it and change the size. So I'm just going to do a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. And I'll click Enter. Okay, I think the placement of the camera is good. Now the coloring is off. The original camera is black and gray. This camera is white and black. Um, there's different ways you can do things. I think the easiest way to change this would be to set the white point to a more gray color. You do this with an adjustment. So on the camera layer, I'm going to click adjustments. I'm going to click levels again. You can see I use levels all the time. Underneath where we originally talked about, the droppers and these sliders, if you go a little further down, there's another bar. And this is where you can reset what the darkest pixels will be and what the lightest pixels will be. So right now this says the whitest pixels in this picture will be white. If I change this, I can say the whitest pixels in this picture will be more gray. Now right now this adjustment is applying to everything, including the happy birthday paper and everything, so it's kind of hard to tell. If you want to apply an adjustment just to a certain layer, I can hold down the Option key and click between the two layers, and now it is only applying to the camera. So we can see the camera kind of looks gray right now. If I look back, it was pretty gray. Let's see. Let me scroll back down, and again you can just play with this until it's the gray that you're happy with. So that looks pretty good right there. Alright, let's see, I could go ahead and reposition the stars now that the camera's in place, so I'm going to do that. That should be pretty quick. I'll start with the top star. The top star is supposed to be behind the camera and right on the edge. It is behind the camera. I'm going to use the move tool. Auto select is on, so I have to click on the star to move it. See how it's kind of jumping around like magnetically? You can hold down control if you want more control. If you want to do Command T and work on the tilt. What is it doing? There we go. Then you can do that. If you wanna, if you're on the move tool, instead of using the arrows, or instead of using the mouse, you can use the keyboard arrows and get it more precisely where you want it. I'll just do something close. Okay, something like that. This star is supposed to be on top of the camera. I know I have the stars in their own folder, but this middle star is going to have to be above the camera in order for it to appear on top. So that kind of gets in my organization just a little bit, but you know what, that's okay. I have the move tool selected, so I can move this. You'll see that these pink lines pop up and they tell you exactly how many pixels far from something is, like if you're trying to like get the angles correct, or if you're trying to like line up objects. So it kind of tells you. It's helpful at times. I think that looks good. Let me hit Command 0 and zoom out, and then let me toggle back and look. Okay, so they're pretty much roughly in the center of each film strip piece. So, I mean, if I wanted to, I can come back and try to move them a little more to be centered. Something. You could play with it and just make it to your liking. Okay. I'll just create another folder and just call this middle star. Again, I'm just trying to be consistent here. And then I'll shrink it. So now this looks nice and compact. Okay. Now let's talk about the lens. Nothing is wrong with this paper looking lens, but just for the sake of learning, we're going to put in another piece. So I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded. Here's a camera lens, like an actual camera lens. I thought it would be fun to use this instead. I'm going to shrink it down, make it a little more easy to work with. I'm going to line up the edge and just kind of try to size this right. Okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make it a little bit bigger than what you need, that's fine. I'm going to use the move tool and try to somewhat center this. You can see it's kind of like magnetically snapping, which isn't helpful. I'm going to hold down Control. Okay. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to, again, make a mask. I'm going to zoom in, use the space bar to drag around. I'm going to use this marquee tool, but I'm going to right click and pick the circular one. If you click in the very center of this lens and you start dragging, you're going to drag out a circle. If you hold down Option, it will make the circle come from the center. So as here, it pulls from the side. If you hold down Option, it pulls from the center. Of course, it's not circular unless you hold down the Shift key as well. So I can hold down Shift and Option, and now it's pulling from the center, and it's a perfect circle. And I don't know how big we need to make this yet. We'll just kind of go with it. I selected this area. I'm just going to click Mask. And now we have a masked off lens. And it's in its own layer, so if I want to move it, I can. I just click the Move tool, and I can move this around. Hold down Control if it's giving me fits. It's actually not a bad size for what we need. Now, if you wanted to change the color, let's say you didn't like this being colorful, again, you can use an adjustment. You can just go to Adjustments, hit black and white. You'll notice if I zoom out, it applied a black and white adjustment to the entire artboard. So you can see that this entire thing is white. You can go ahead and mask this black and white adjustment so that it will just color in, it'll only apply the black and white filter to this lens if that's what you want. The easiest way to do this, again, is to apply it just to the lens layer. So I do that by holding down Option and clicking between the two layers, and now it will apply this black and white filter only to this masked lens, which is this part. So there is that. Technically, both of these things are part of the camera, so I can move them to the camera folder if I want. And now we can see they're in here. As long as the camera lens is on top of the paper camera, then it will appear on top. If it was behind that layer, then it would be hiding and you couldn't see it. Alright, so we got the lens now. The next thing is to add the flash. So I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and pull up, here's a stock picture of a flash. I'm going to shrink it just a little bit. I'm going to zoom in, hold the space bar to move. I need to select the white parts of this. I don't want to pull any of the black. I'm not sure, we'll see how much we can pull. I'm going to again use the magic wand selection. I'm going to change the tolerance to something like, I don't know, 30. Remember, the smaller the number, the less tolerant it is, and it will like pick only a specific color. If you put this higher, it won't be as selective. So if I click this, it chooses as much as it can that's close to what I clicked on. And that looks, pretty decent. I think if I go too far, like if I change this to some high number, I'm going to hit Command D to start over and deselect. Yeah, if I go too far, then it's going to start selecting all this black, and then it's going to look really ugly. So I want to stay at a reasonable number. I'm going to hit Command D again to reset. Click. Even that's too much, I think. I don't know. I mean, I can always hit mask and look. Well, maybe that's okay. Again, if you're not sure, you can always hit Command Z and undo and then redo it. Hit Command D to deselect. You can always, play with this number. Let's say I did 80, clicked on it, click mask down here at the bottom, and that'll mask it. Alright, so that's half not bad. Let's say I wanted to do something kind of like the original. So if you look, there's these little lines coming off of the flash. If I want to do that with this, one way that I can do that is if you go to where the brush tool is, you right click, there's another tool that we didn't talk about. It's very much like the brush tool, it's called the pencil tool. And if I zoom in and kind of work closer to the flash, I want to use the pencil tool to draw lines. Oh, right now it's selected on this mask, that's why I don't see anything. Let me create a new layer. I'll just call this flash lines. If I start, painting, you can see the pencil is basically just making a line. I'm going to hit Command Z. I want the lines that I draw to be the same color. So again, you use the eyedropper tool. Pick whatever you're interested in. You can even pick like more of this like yellow white if that's what you want. I might just stick with the white. Go back to the pencil tool. Now I'm going to draw lines kind of like on the original one. I'm going to click, and I haven't showed you this trick yet, but if you come out just some distance, so you hold down Shift and you click again, it will draw a straight line. So I can go click, Shift, click, click, Shift, click, click, Shift, click. I'm going to go around and do all the different points so it looks consistent. You don't have to do this, but if your mask for your flash didn't turn out that well, this is just something you can add. So again, I'm clicking where I want it to start a line, and then I shift and click, and it draws a straight line between those two sides. This works for drawing lines, this works for like the paintbrush tool. It's just a handy little tip. I'm going to zoom back out, hit Command 0, and it looks pretty decent. I like it. Again, if you don't like the color, you could like put a black and white filter over that area, apply it to just the flash, and make this more white and black and gray. Okay, so we got flash lines, and then if you can't remember what something is, like this name is terrible, you can just click this visibility toggle and you can see what it is. I'm going to call it flash. I think the flash and the flash lines, I'm going to hit Command to select two layers. I think this could go in the camera folder. That's fine. And there we go. I'm going to just close that down so it's a little more condensed. Okay, so we got the camera flash. I think I'm happy with that. Looks like we have most of this coming together, so what's left is to do the lettering. Now, do I have enough room for the lettering? I might need to move the camera down to make more room. So I'm on this folder with camera, I'm on the move tool, I can take auto select off, and then it basically will move anything in the camera layer. And since I have all that grouped together, I think that's all we had to do. If I click on, anything else, with auto select off, it has to move only the layer that you're on. If you have auto select on, then you can just click anything and it'll automatically pick what layer you need to be in. So again, it's up to you what you use. Okay. Next, we're going to do those words. This says "oh snap." Snap is bold, and then it's got an exclamation mark that is bold. So I'm going to go back to the project. I'm going to go down to text. I'm going to choose this horizontal type tool, the first option. I'm going to click up here and type "oh snap!" exclamation mark. Now you can see it made it gray by default. I want it to be black. Whenever you're working with a tool, all the options for that tool are always at the top. Right now you can see there's a color here for gray. If you go to click on this and you try to make it black, you'll notice it doesn't turn black. That's because you have to select something in order to make it change color. So you have to be on the type tool and select the text and then go in and change the color. So just like that. Let's make this size 60, and I'm going to move this over there. Okay. Now, is this still too tall? I think it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Now, let's talk about character options. So whenever you're working with text, I'm going to go back to the text tool real quick. Whenever you're working with text, like I said, you usually have like options across this top bar. Sometimes there's more options than what's shown. Toggle the character and paragraph panels. So if I click this, it will pull out character, and then there's also more options for paragraph. Here you can see there's the font name. Here you can choose bold, italic, regular, whatever. This is the size of the font. This is the spacing between lines. This is the spacing between letters. I'm not really sure what this one is. I don't use that. This is how tall the letters are. This is like if you want to create like a superscript. The coloring. Here's bold, italics, all caps, lower, little caps, superscript, subscript, underline, cross through. Some other options. Again, I don't use all these things. And why is there a second? I don't know why there's a second line for that. Anyway, let's say that I want to make this word snap and the exclamation mark bold. I would click bold. Let's say that I want the font to be more cursive-y. Looks like this first part is a little bit different font than the second part. So if I want, I can try to go find two different fonts for that. So I can click this. It kind of shows a sample of what it looks like here. And you'll notice as I like cycle over them, you can look up at the actual text in there and it shows what it looks like. So let's see. So I can do Cosmic Sands maybe for O. That kind of looks similar to that. And then if I choose some kind of font that is more cursive-y, let's see. That one's not so good. That's not probably what I want. That one's not bad. Again, you can sample through all these and try to find something that's going to work for you. I'm just going to go with this option. So, oh, snap. This looks like a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll increase the size. Change this to 70. Okay. Now we got the font and the text the way we want. I'm going to next work on the background behind the text. So you'll see there's like a white, just to kind of let the text, you know, have something to help contrast off of. and then it's got this green so that it separates it from this happy birthday paper. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to go back here. Let's see. Oh, it also looks like this oh snap is angled just a little bit. I'm going to go back to this text layer, oh snap. I'm going to move it to the top, so above all of these layers. I'm going to hit, just like we did before, edit transform, or you can just hit Command T, and that will let you treat this like an object. So I can come just outside and then rotate it if I want. Hit enter. I'm going to use the lasso tool just to draw a loose selection. Doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, just like that. I'm going to create a new layer. This is going to be the white underneath the letters, so I want it under the text. So think about the order. I'm going to be using white, so I want to make sure I'm painting with white. The top swatch is the active one, so I'm going to switch these. I'm going to hit B for my brush tool. Right now it's set on pencils, so I need to change it back to brush. And then I can start painting, and it will paint in this white layer. Okay, now the green behind there. The trick for this one, I want it to be the same size. You know, in the original one, if you look at this, if you look at the green, it's thicker in some areas than it is in others. You can make it more consistent by using a selection modification. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. So let me zoom in. I don't need this open anymore. If I go to select, this is the select menu at the top. It's got all these different things you can do. If I go to modify and expand the selection like we did before, let's say I choose, I don't know, 25 pixels. I'm going to click OK, and now it made that expand just 25 pixels all the way around. If I start painting that green color, it's going to start covering up the white too, because we're in the layer where we had the white. So I need to make another layer and put it behind the white layer in order to paint and not cover up the white. I need to use my eyedropper to select this green color here. So I'm going to use the key for eye. That's the shortcut key for this eyedropper here. Just click this, that'll capture this green. Hit B to go back to my brush. And then when I start painting, it's going to bring in that green color only in the selection. So just going to go ahead and do that real quick. Alright. I can hit Command D to deselect. Again, this, and this are all related. I can even label these if I want to be organized. So that one's the green layer, this one's the white layer. And then technically I can hold down Command and select all three and throw them in a folder and retitle this by double clicking on it. Alright, so again, if you want, you can toggle on and off the visibility of a layer and it will disappear. Alright, so we got the top one done. There is one more area down here that we have not done yet. And this one is actually a little more on the complex side. We're going to build this shape from scratch. So you'll notice it's mostly like a rectangle. It's got rounded corners and then it's got this bump at the top. So let's create the shape first, and then we'll come back and add the brad and we'll add the text, and then we'll be close to done. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to come down here and I need to make that shape. I'm going to use the rectangle marquee tool. I'm going to start about here, I guess. And let's just go with something that size. Now, I'm going to be making a new layer, and I'm going to call this, it's your birthday. This is going to be the area where we have text. So I'm just going to have all of this. Well, let's see, that's what I need to name the folder. I need to name this white, I guess, because I'm going to have this be the white layer. Let me go ahead and make that folder real quick. It's your birthday. This is going to be the sign and the text on top. I'm going to make this go in that folder. Okay. So let's go ahead and make this white layer. I'm going to go ahead and just grab my brush, reset this color swatch, switch to white, and I'm just going to brush white. So you can go ahead and brush white. I think there's a faster way. If I hit Command Z and undo this, if you go to Edit, Fill, here's that option for like content aware. Well, you can fill with white, you can fill with black, you can fill with 50% gray. So if I just choose white and click OK, it'll fill it with white, whatever the selection is. Or if it's just a layer, it'll fill the whole layer with white. So that's another way to do that if you don't want to sit there and brush the whole thing. Okay, so that is the white layer. Now I want to make the edges rounded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the circular marquee tool, and I have this on a different type of selection. I'm going to move this back to our regular single select. Whenever you're doing this, if I do this like this, it'll let you draw a single circle, and then once you have that circle, you can move it around. There's been times before where I draw a circle and I go to move it after I've switched to another tool, and then I try to come back, and then I go to move it, and sometimes it won't move. I want all four sides to be the same shape. If you're running into issues with that, instead of just drawing a circle or holding the shift button to make a perfect circle, you can make a circle whatever size you want. So up here in the options, again, any tool has options across the top. Here there's style, and right now it's on normal. You can have a fixed ratio or a fixed size. So if I wanted a 250 pixel by 250 pixel circle, now all I just do is a single click, and that circle of that size will pop up every time. Of course, you'll have to change this back to normal if you don't want that particular fixed size. But what I can do is I can zoom in to the corner, and I can move this to the edge, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to line it up with the edge of the white, and I'm going to use this circle to protect the rest of the sign while I try to erase the corner. So what I need to do is, if I switch to my eraser with the E key, so here's the eraser, and the key is E for eraser. Well, I just got rid of my circle. Let me move that back. There we go. So if I hit E, now I have my eraser. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I can come in, and if I start erasing, it's going to erase inside the circle. I don't want to erase inside the circle, I want to erase outside the circle. So I have to inverse the selection. So if you come up to select menu, you click inverse, it'll select everything but that circle. You can also do the shortcut, Shift Command I. So if I just do Shift Command I, now it's everything but that circle. So now it will protect everything in the circle while I erase the outside. So this is one way you can make rounded corners. Alright, so I'm going to hold the spacebar, kind of shuttle over to this side. I'm going to go back to my marquee with the M key. That's this tool here. It's still set on 250 pixel by 250. If I just click, there's my circle. And I can line up the edges. Again, if you're zoomed in, you're going to be a little more precise with that. I'm going to hit E, bring up my eraser. Now if I start erasing, it's going to erase inside the circle. Command Z. I want to inverse it, so Command Shift I. Now everything outside the circle is selected, and that will let me erase the outer part. Alright. Command D to deselect. Spacebar to shuttle down to the bottom. And you just repeat this process. M key for marquee tool. Line it up. Use the arrow keys to move it. You can drag it with the mouse, but it's sometimes easier to use the arrow keys. Command Shift I to inverse. E for the eraser, and erase. Command D. Spacebar, move over. M for marquee tool, click. Line up the circle. Looks actually pretty decent. I'm going to hit E for my eraser. I'm going to hit Command Shift I to inverse the selection. And there we go. Command D to deselect. I'm going to hit Command minus to zoom out. Spacebar to reorient. And there's where we are so far. So there's a shape with rounded corners. Again, if you wanted to, you can, instead of just doing it for this project, if you have a shape and you want to make it from scratch like this, you can save that shape in its own file ahead of time, and then you don't have to do all this on the fly. And then you can use it again and again for our different projects. So the last piece of this was there was a bump that came at the top, like this. So let's make that bump. I'm going to come towards the top. I'm going to again use the circular marquee tool. I'm going to try to find the middle. I'm going to start down here. Again, if you just click and you drag, oh, well, here we're set on that fixed circle size. I want to go back to normal, deselect. I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to be right about here, I guess. If you drag, it's going to drag from the corner. If you hold Option, it drags from the center. I don't care if it's like perfectly circular in this case. I just want to bump. And I'm obviously not centered. I can fix that in a second. Yeah, let's go with that. I can click and drag until it looks right. That pink line kind of helps you know when it's close to center. Right there, centered. So I have this option. I'm still in this white layer. I'm just going to click the brush tool. It says I'm painting with white, and there you go. And then I can hit Command D to deselect. So there is our shape. Looks pretty good. Now, let's say that you're working in this layer. The only thing in this layer is this white shape. That's it. If you hold down the Control key when you're working with a layer, if you want to quickly select it, you can hold down Control. I think it's Control with the Mac. And if you click, maybe it's Command. If you hold down Command and click, yeah, it's Command on Windows or on Mac. It will select everything in that layer. So that's just a quick way if you didn't want to go around and try to grab it with some selection tool. You can just hover over the object, hit Command and click, and it will select it all. Now the reason I did that is because we need to make this green behind this white. Notice it's only on the bottom and the top. It's not on the side. But either way, it's kind of like we did before. It's going to be a border all the way around. So I'm going to expand the selection. So I'm going to go to Select, Modify, Expand. Let's just do, I don't know, 40 this time. I'm going to click OK. Remember, we're in the same layer as the white. So if I start painting, it's going to paint over the white. I don't want that. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it green. Right now it's saying the green is on top of the white. I want the green layer below the white. So I'm in that green layer. I got my brush. I need to hit I to pull up the eyedropper right here. Grab the green color. Go back to B for brush. And paint. This will let me pull in that green. I know it's not supposed to be on the sides. I'll fix that in a second. I just want to get that together. If you want, you can make the white disappear so that you can fill in the whole shape. If you want. You can use the paint bucket tool as just a one-click way to fill in. So if I hit Command Z and I hide that white again, well, I didn't completely get rid of it, but if you had the paint bucket tool and you just click, it'll fill in the whole shape. So that's another way to do it. I'm going to bring that white layer back. Let's see. So we got the green. Now I want to hide it on the sides. So there's no green on the side. I'm going to hit Command D. I'm in the green layer. I'm going to come up to this marquee tool, make a rectangle. I'm just going to loosely draw like that, and then move it over so that I can select that area. I'm going to zoom in so I can get it with the arrow keys just on the line. Zoom back out. And I can use my eraser, make this a little bit bigger, and I can erase that part of the green. Then I can go back to my marquee tool with the M key and take this selection and move it over to the other side and do the same thing. Use the arrow keys. I can zoom in if I want to be really precise. Spacebar to navigate. Come all the way over. That's pretty close. I'm going to zoom back out. Hit E for my eraser. And I'm on the green layer, so it's only going to affect the green, just like that. Command D. So that did a pretty decent job. You'll notice these edges look a little sharp. I think in the original one it wasn't that sharp. So that's one way to try to do it. You can come in and like grab a circular tool like this, make like a circle, and just like we did before, well, I made it not so round. Just like we did before, you can use this circle to kind of come up and try to round the corner if you want. I'm going to show you another way to do this too. So that's one way to do it. I'm actually going to delete this green layer, and I'm going to show you another way to do it. So we know that we need it to pop above the top and the bottom. Again, if I hit Command and click on this, it selects that shape. If I make another layer and drag it below the white and name it green, I could just take a paintbrush. Where's the brush? I could just take the paintbrush and just paint. Let me hide the white one for a second. I could just paint and have this entire shape green. And instead of expanding the selection and trying to round corners and stuff, this is already a round corner and it's the same shape. I'm going to hit Command D. I'm on this green layer that I misspelled. If I'm on the move tool and I use the up arrow key, I could just, move the green object behind the white up until I'm happy with the way it looks. And you can do the exact same thing by making a copy of this and then moving it down. So watch this. So this is green. If you want, you can label it top. If I want to make a copy of this layer, just like we did before, you can hold down Option and then click on it and drag. And then if you drag it outside of that layer, it'll create a copy. I want that copy to be inside this folder, so I need to bring it inside for a second. And now it's indented, so I can tell it's inside of this folder. If it's not indented, then it's not in the folder. I'm going to call this green bottom. Hit enter. And now this is a second copy of that same object. Now I can use the down arrow keys there it goes, and bring this out the bottom. Now because we didn't use the expand selection and pick a certain number of pixels, it's more that I'm eyeballing it to see if the size looks correct. So I think that looks okay. Now another way you could make this look a little better is, you know, in this actual paper, there's like, you know, this looks like physical paper. It's not just white. In mine, I just used digital white. So you could, you know, make this shape, and instead of filling with white, you could fill it with like a paper and use that selection as a mask so that this looks like actual paper. So that's an option. Just keep that in mind. I'm just using white for simplicity. I'm gonna minimize that folder for a second. So we got the shape. Then I need to add this little brad. I'm gonna do that by going to File, Place Embedded, and selecting the ball bearing that we had worked on previously. Again, if you didn't get rid of the background, you can just make a mask with the mask tool like we did before. But if you do everything, like as much as you can, it's just convenient, and then for multiple projects in the future you have all of it done. The other thing I will say about this, when you're working with files, if you know you're always going to use this as a brad, right now it's, you know, much bigger than it needs to be, and that's going to contribute to the file size that we end up with. So you can always shrink all your files down to like the size that you would actually use them at. It's never going to be the size of a ball bearing. So if you know you're always going to use it and it's going to be small, you can shrink the size of the original object, and that way when you embed it, it's going to save file space. So anyway, just some tips. Let's see if I can move this. So that pink line again tells you where it is in relation to other objects, and it says that's centered, so that's fine. I think that's about where it was. Well, it looks like it's in the upper part of that circle, so I could move it up a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Now the text. So this can be a little challenging. You'll see it says it's in a font style that has almost like an outline, and it's got this almost like, I don't know, this makes me think of wood and western, the way the style is. Who cares what font it is? You can pick whatever font. So here we'll just go to the type tool. We'll click here and type something, IT''S, return your. I'm going to move this over. Again, you can do your best to center it. I'm going to go back to the type tool, so you can click on it or you can just hit T. I'm going to select this. I'm going to actually open that character thing that we did earlier. If you don't see it, you can click up here. It'll open it. Now you can see these are spaced really far apart. I can change that by changing this spacing here from auto, and then I can pick whatever. So if I pick 6, it's going to put them really close together. So now they're only 6 points apart. If you do something like 36, they're still pretty close. Let's see about 60. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's do that. Let's look at the font. So let's see. I don't know if I showed you this, but you can also change the spacing. So like if you wanted, you can have the letters really close together. You can have the letters really far apart. And then you can always type in your own number too if you want. So a lot of different options for changing and customizing your fonts. Let me look for a different font. I think it just had some interesting looking Western look. I don't know if I can find anything like that. You can always download extra fonts and import them. I'm sure there's like plugins for Photoshop. Let me see if I can just find something that's got a little bit of character to it. That one's okay. Probably takes just as long to sample through and find what fonts you like. I don't see anything that screams Western to me. Now this one kind of has like an outline look to it. It's really fat. You can make your own outline. I'm going to show you how to do that. I guess I shouldn't be picky because I don't want to sit here all day. Okay, well, let me just go back up to the top. Some of these are really interesting. Some of these are boring. I'm just going to go with this. I think the font size is a little big. Let me shrink it. Okay. Now let me click off of this, and I want to see if the same thing works. So remember I showed you that trick earlier. If you hit Command and you click on it, it'll make a selection around whatever's in that layer. In this case, it's just text. So there's a selection around the text. So I'm using the text to make this selection. The reason I'm doing that is to create an outline from any type of font instead of having to go and find a specific font. If you like this font and you want it to look like an outline, like I said, I'll do it again. You hold Command and click on the font or whatever layer, and it'll select what's in that layer, in this case letters. Then I'm going to go up to Select, Modify Selection, and there's this interesting thing called Border. This allows you to like create a line, a bordered line all the way around wherever the current selection is. So in this case, let's try 4 pixels or 5 pixels. Click OK, and it will, if I zoom in, you can see it's going to create like a line, kind of like an outline. And you can make this as wide or as small as you want. So I'm going to make this in its own layer outside of this text layer. I'm going to call this outline text. So again, I started with actual text, created a selection from it, and then made the outline. And now I'm going to go and use my brush. I'm going to hit B. Well, maybe not. I'll just click on it. I'm going to hit B, click on that. I'm going to make sure I have black selected. There's black. And I'm going to paint, and that should paint in black in those areas. I don't need the actual font anymore, so I'm going to delete this. And now I'm just left with the outline that I misspelled. There we go. If I hit Command D to deselect, now you can see I've made outline of the text that I started with. So that's just a little handy trick. You can do it with any font. Okay, so I got it's your, and then we got some cursive font that's bold. So let's see about doing that. So I'm going to choose the text tool again. Type in birthday. Need to make this smaller. Need to add the exclamation mark. I'm going to go back to the text tool and see about changing the font, make it something cursive. Let's see. Okay, that works. Let me see if I can find the right size. That's fine. Now right now I think it's green. I can see a little pinch of it here. So I'm going to click this and choose black. Here's that character thing. You can also click here. You can choose bold. if it's not bolded or if you want it more bold. Let's click off of it and see. It looks a little big. Still gonna shrink this. Let's try 55, maybe. Okay, this says it is now centered. You see that vertical pink line? Centered with that shape. And then it's your, guess I should name this, it's your. It says that's centered. There we go. Okay, not bad. Let me just take a look. It's your birthday, and we got the Brad, the color, and that's kind of what this looks like. Like I said, if you want this to look a little better, instead of using plain white for this sign, you could use this sign to create like something that looks more like paper. I could just do that real quick. Let me just show you. So here's this is the Creative Cloud app that I use. I look on free. I can just do, I don't know, tan paper. It opens up Adobe's web browser, looking on their Adobe stock for tan paper. So let's say that I liked this one. I can click license, it'll download it. There we go. I'm gonna minimize that, okay. What is this? Oh, that's the Brad. This is part of the happy birthday sign. And this is part of the sign, and this. So I'm just moving things into this folder. Here we go. If I go to that white sign, I'm gonna go to File, Place Embedded, and I'm gonna pick the paper I just downloaded, so it's in my Downloads folder. There it is. Okay, obviously that's really big. If you want to save file space in this file, you could crop the original before you open it like this. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. If I left it like that and I just masked out just this small part for this sign, the rest of the picture is still in this file, and so the rest of that picture will contribute to the amount of memory that the file has to make. So to cut back on that, you can open the download and crop it before you bring it in so that it's not so big. These are just little things. Hopefully that's big enough. I'm just going to hit Command S to save. Save it as the maximum size. That's fine. Okay, so now if I bring this in, it should be smaller now, so it shouldn't take up as much space. Yeah, that's better. I'm just going to lay it in the general area and click Enter. Now, we're going to use that same trick. Here's that white thing. Basically want it the same size and shape as the white that we had made. So I'm going to click on this after I hold down the Command button. So Command, click. That makes a selection. Now, I'm just using that white layer to make the selection. This layer, I think, is the tan paper. I got the selection I want, and I'm on the layer with the tan paper. If I just click Mask, it will mask the tan layer to that shape, that selection. I technically don't need this white layer anymore since I'm just going to use the tan. So there you go. This is tan paper. Okay. This is why it's important to stay organized. You can see how many layers we've already made. And this is a somewhat simple project. So if you can imagine like very complex files, it can get hard if you don't stay organized. So, okay. Well, the only other things I can really suggest that come to mind right now is adding like shadows. So right now, with the way things are, like the film strip and the stars, they look like kind of flat. like this paper with the O-snap, it kind of looks flat, like there's no shadows. So you could add shadows to add depth. Like if there was no shadows on this happy birthday paper, it would look really flat. So that would be the only thing I could say to change. I'm not the best with adding shadows. I'm sure there's faster ways to do it. I would honestly need to look that up before I showed you. If I had to guess, just how to do it, let me pick this middle star as an example. How I would do it is I would do that, hold command and click, create a selection, create a new layer, pick some color of gray. This is just how I would do it, and again, there's probably a better way to do this. I'm going to make sure this new layer, which I'm going to call shadow, is below the star. I'm going to move with the arrow keys. So I'm on the move tool. I'm going to use the arrow keys to offset this. So I'm going to go 1, 2, oh, well, it says it's empty. So I'm trying to move the selection. I think I need to be on a selection tool like one of these. Now let me see if I can use the arrow keys. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then I'm going to move it to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so make sure you're not on the move tool if there's no pixels. This is just a selection on a blank layer. So use one of the selection tools and then it will let you move them. Okay, so now I'm going to use the brush. I'm going to be painting gray inside of that star that I just made. And I haven't showed you this yet, but any layer, it doesn't matter what it is, any layer has something called opacity. I'm going to use Command D to deselect. So I'm on this shadow layer. You'll see right here it says opacity. And you can use this to make something, look at the gray layer now behind that star. You can make it look as transparent as you'd like. And you can kind of make a shadow out of that. That's my guess on how I would make shadows. And you can do this for the sign, you can do this for the camera. Really, it just comes down to spending time and doing it. So anyway, it'll add more depth to the picture if you do that for everything. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you about that. But like I said, you can do it with anything. You can even do it with text. So like if you wanted to change the opacity of text, you can. Looks like it goes between, white, gray, and black. And it also works for adjustments. So if you have like this levels adjustment and it's a little too harsh for you, you can change the opacity and make the levels adjustment, a little more fine-tuned. Or a black and white adjustment, same thing. Or, saturation. It's like it's a way to like tile down an effect. So there's a lot of things I can tell you about in Photoshop. It's hard to put all this in a single video, but this is kind of how I would make this card. We can talk about more tips going forward. So anyway, I think I will stop it there. I think this video is long enough. There's a lot of stuff in here to review, and I will touch more on some other tips going forward. So I think that's where we'll end this one. Until next time.